All right. Looks like we are live. And I want to welcome everyone today to the finale of our Be Her Ally series, a powerful journey where we have heard from male allies who champion inclusion, lead with empathy, and actively open doors for women returning to the workforce. This season is extra special as we celebrate our 10 years of Women of Work, a decade of impact, resilience, and rewriting the returnship stories. And there's no better way to close this series than with a leader who truly embodies what modern allyship looks like at scale. Today, I have the absolute privilege of welcoming Jeetu Patel, Cisco's president and chief product officer, a role where he's not just shaping product, but shaping the future. He's relentlessly focused on solving real complex challenges for customer, bringing together the best of Cisco's portfolio to connect and protect every layer of an organization, especially in this fast evolving era of AI. With a background in information decision sciences from University of Illinois, Jeetu brings a unique mix of technical depth, business insight, and visionary leadership. Now, I could spend the whole session talking about Jeetu's accomplishment, but let's not do that. Jeetu, welcome. And
Thank
to
you,
kick
Pam.
us, could you share with our audience a bit about you in your own voice?
Firstly, I have to say that if I'm ever low on confidence, I'm going to call you and have you read out my bio. That's a very flattering
Oh,
introduction.
wonderful.
Thank you for that. So you want me to give you a little bit of my background?
Yeah, just for
Sure.
the audience, I'm sure most of them may know you, but people who don't know you, a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I basically am a product guy. Built products a lot of the years of my life, and been at Cisco for 5 years. Grew up in India. Moved here when I was 19. Lived in Chicago for about 20 years and moved to Silicon Valley after that. Did you know, a bunch of different jobs. I ran my own business. So my journey was slightly opposite. I started by running my own business and then went to a large company, which is opposite of what people usually do. They will start at large companies and then go to do a startup. And I found the journey completely rewarding. So very grateful for all the opportunities that were there, and met amazing people along the way. And it's I think this is a very interesting time to be alive in tech. I think there's so much cool stuff going on, and the shape of how humans will live and operate and work is going to be so different in the next decade. um, and the fact that we are in the thick of it all, what a privilege to be doing that. So
Well, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, Jitu.
yeah.
Um, I really wanted to start today's session by reflecting on something you recently shared, and that really struck a chord with me, and I'm sure with many of us. In your Mother's Day post, you spoke about your mom and Jody and the sacrifices they have made. And, the overall post was so powerful reminder of how personal lives of all of us shape the way we lead professionally. If I may ask you to, how have those experiences influenced your approach to leadership and the way you support like those around you?
Oh, my mom was an angel. She was the best mother I could have hoped for. I'll tell you a story. When she was very abused by her husband, who was my dad, in the early years. And then when she moved here, we didn't see each other for 7 years when I moved to America. So that was a very hard thing because I'm the only child. She was like my best friend. And it took a while for us to see each other. For 7 years, we didn't see each other, but we would talk on the phone all the time. And talking on the phone back then in the 90s, it was expensive. When I first came here, it was $7 a minute or something like that, like something ridiculously expensive. Um, and she was she got ill very quickly. And when she got ill very quickly, I was always on go, go, go. I was living with her in the hospital at the time. I would take conference calls from the hospital. And then there were two things that happened which were really kind of seminal. to me. The first thing that happened was Chuck, who was my boss, found out that I'm taking conference calls from the hospital, and he sent me a text, and I still remember this text. It was all caps, and he said, "She's your only priority right now. Stop taking texts." It was amazing. And you always know that you can actually take care of family if you need to, but it's particularly helpful. What that reminded me of was it's particularly helpful for someone, even though you know it, to reinforce it. So that was it. Just took the burden off my shoulder and saying, okay, I don't feel guilty taking care of my mom because it is actually the right thing to do. But the second thing was I was telling my mom, and I was still in denial that she might not be around for that long. And she it was about 8 weeks or so. I forget what the exact time was, but I spent the last 8 weeks with her. And I was going to go to Amsterdam for doing some Cisco Live keynote or something. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to go to Amsterdam for 2 days and I'll be back. And she just shook her head and she said, Stop. I need you to just stop because I don't want you to have any regret after I'm gone, um, that you didn't do your part. And so I'm going to insist that you don't go anywhere and spend all the time with me. And, usually parents, as they get older, they become our kids. And she had become my kid for many years. And then it had flipped again in the hospital where she became the mom. And she was very, very strict about saying, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to sit down right here. And those two things then allowed me to spend the time with her that I needed, which I actually think is very similar, not nearly as hard as what, like, for example, mothers go through when they're raising their children when they're coming in. But it's very similar in the sense that you feel a level of guilt regardless of what you're doing. If you're working, you feel guilt that you're not taking care of the home. If you're doing something at home, you feel the guilt that you're not working. And at least in this case, for me, the guilt about not working went away because my boss was supportive and my mother insisted that no matter what happens, you're not going anywhere. You're just staying here. So I actually let someone else do the keynote. It was fine. In fact, he probably would have gotten better ratings than I would have ever gotten. And it was nothing stopped. The world didn't stop because I didn't go to a keynote in Amsterdam, and I was able to cherish those memories with my mother for eight weeks. And when she passed, she told me at the end, in the last couple of nights, I was crying sitting next to her. By the way, I didn't plan on doing this in this thing. Um, and she said, one, I didn't realize you loved me so much, so thank you. And two, um, I have no complaints, and you were a perfect son. And then we left it at that.
Wow. And
So I think it's we all go through these journeys, and we all need to make sure that we are supporting each other and being empathetic. And I think women go through it more than men do because the bond with the child. Like, I have a daughter. I love my daughter. She is amazing, but the bond she has with her mother, I mean, I can't even come close. Is no contest, and when something happened, she was diagnosed with scoliosis 2 years ago. Jyoti decided that she's just going to quit her job. She's like, I'm going to take 100% of my time with her. And now she's getting the itch to get back because she was very successful in her career. She was a CHRO. She had sold a couple of companies. And she's like, I want to get back in. And when she does, she should have an easy path back in. So, like, I live this firsthand, and I'm seeing what it feels like. And it's not about the money on going back into work. It's about your identity and intellectual stimulation and all the things that you get from work that we want to make sure that we get. And it should not be hard for her to get back. She should be able to get back. I mean, luckily, she's very resourceful, but I do feel like it's hard sometimes for people to get back in after they've been out for a while.
I'm glad that you recognize that. And thank you so much for sharing such a personal story. It's almost felt like, immediately calling my mom who's sitting in India. And I'm so glad that you got to spend those days with your mom. And thank you again
You
for
should
sharing.
love your mom a lot. I think you should take the time to tell them that you love them because I thought that my mom knew. And when I was crying, she's like, I had no idea that you loved me so much. And if my mom didn't know, and I'm one of the most expressive people, um, don't assume that your parents know. Like you should go tell them.
Thank you for the reminder. And yes, absolutely, it's never enough. Appreciate again sharing that. It's also very clear, the personal experience play a very big role in how we lead. So I don't want to make it extremely emotional, but on a different note, you have held various leadership roles at Cisco, at Box, at EMC. What are
Give
some of
these jobs to anyone these days, Pam. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
the
anyway,
So my question was, though, what I was trying to ask is, you know, what are some of the key lessons that you have learned about building and scaling high performance team and product? And if you can share a little bit about that journey.
I think one of the most important things that you can do is in life is um, the quality of the problem that you pick to solve and spend your time on is actually directly proportionate to the success of the outcome. And it's a very counterintuitive concept because what I mean by that is the harder the problem, the higher the likelihood of success, which seems completely counterintuitive to people. Like, what are you talking about? Shouldn't you pick an easier problem because that's going to be easier to solve? And the answer is no. Actually, the harder the problem, the higher the likelihood of success because business is a team sport. And you typically attract the best people to solve some of the most hard problems that exist in society. So if you were to say, what should you be thinking about? You know, really focus on picking the quality of the problem that you want to spend your time solving and make sure that those problems have meaningful impact and scale on society and scaled impact on society. I think that's super important. Um, so pick the right problem to solve, pick the right people to solve those problems with. So I always say that the reason 90% of my success is because the people that I worked for and the people that worked for me. It's 99% of the success, I would say. There's this person, Jesse, who is my head of operations. I
Mhm.
don't take a job without Jesse, and whatever job I go to, it's always two offers or none. And I would be infinitely less successful if Jesse were not by my side. You know, um, if you think about my chief of staff, Sheer, my EA, Jules, all of these people are very kind of integral part of just keeping the sanity going for you. And so having that team around you, that's your first team, super important. Um, the and then the other thing I'd say is, um, you know, be slightly dissatisfied and move faster than you think you need to move because business is a race on how quickly you get to the destination, and speed really matters. And if you don't have speed, it doesn't really matter. And so I actually think intensity is really important. Um, and and so you have to just move fast, but and by the way, when you have intensity in whatever you're doing in life, like whatever I do in life, I do it very intensely. You tend to uh, it's a pretty important thing to keep in mind that um, you get what you put into something.
That's a lot of profound insight in one answer. So I'll have to sit, comprehend, and absorb it all. And thank you for sharing that perspective on allyship with Jesse and your team. And a huge shout out to Sam and Julie for helping us, of course, having you here and working with your schedule. And that
Of course.
really shows how allyship starts at the leadership level. Now, Again, moving a gear a little bit because Jeetu, you are here, and if I don't talk about AI, that would be like launching an app on the dark mode or without a dark mode, right? So it's just not done in 2025, and above all, the audience wouldn't let me get away with that. So, I have seen you speak at a lot of platforms and forums talking about shaping global AI infrastructure. As we move into this agentic era of AI, how do you see returners or talents in general who are coming back to workforce post a career break would be playing a role in this transformation?
I think, look, first you have to kind of acknowledge that it might be intimidating for them coming back in, and that's okay. You know, every human being has an element of imposter syndrome. Every human being feels like they might not be able to get something done at some point. Um, and everyone has a level of insecurity in some dimension. So if you feel that, there's nothing wrong. It's okay to feel that way. Things are moving really fast. If you've not kept up with what's going on, it can be overwhelming. It could be like, oh my goodness, I don't understand it. But the reality is we are right now at a time where the playing field is leveled and experience matters less and less and potential matters more and more. And hunger matters far more than experience. And you can't teach hunger. You either have it or you don't. So if you are coming back, the reason I'm saying this is it is completely plausible within a matter of just a few months, few days, few months, and a couple quarters to get very, very high levels of dexterity in AI. This is not rocket science. And even rocket science is not rocket science. People like people can figure this stuff out. It's anything in humanity's breaking down the problem to the smallest component and then, tackling it at that component. So my strong advice to everyone would be don't be afraid about AI taking your job, but become the best at the use of AI so that you can become the most relevant contributor to society. Because the people that'll be the next wave of leaders are going to be ones that are dexterous with AI, not that are oblivious about AI. And so you're just going to have to make sure that you get into that uncomfortable position. If you feel uncomfortable, if you don't feel uncomfortable, even better. But if you feel uncomfortable, don't let that stop you from actually getting in there, because um, learning is actually a fun thing once you get going, but it's a very hard thing. It's like working out. The first day of working out, boy, it's hard. You don't feel like going in. The second day, even hard. But once you've gone in for 7 days, the eighth day is not that hard. It becomes a habit. And so the first few days of learning in AI seems intimidating, seems hard, seems like it's not quite as stimulating. But remember, anything that you see around the world now, you can learn and get up to speed in a fraction of the time of what you could have done just 2 to 3 years ago. And that to me seems liberating, because you now have leveled the playing field as an opportunity with anyone else. Like someone who's a 20-year-old can learn something just as fast as someone who is a 50-year-old, arguably even faster. And so if you're coming in and you feel like you've been out for a while, it's actually an advantage because you can get up to speed faster than what you could have, before. And it's not like if you lost 3 years, it'll take you 3 years to get back up to speed. No, if you lost 3 years, it might take you 3 weeks to get back up to speed for the 3 years you've lost. And so don't worry, just get into it.
I love the way you put this together, and the fact that it is a level playing field again, no matter where you're coming from. Is I hope returners, you guys are taking notes on that, because you guys do have edge. Because if somebody is going to work, you have the edge to scale up on those AI tools and be more proficient than somebody who's working. So great, great insight on a very different approach to AI and how our returner community should really catch up onto it.
And by the
Um,
way, time matters, right? So when you have a window of time to learn, that's a gift. And so if you haven't gotten back into the job force yet, use that. One of my best friends was she's like means the world to me. She was recently looking for a job, and she got into this rhythm of learning. And boy, did she just thrive during that period. And it was so cool to see how she just got into the tempo and the rhythm of learning. And before you knew it, like she surprised herself. And I think that's the beauty about this thing is you start to have a lot of fun with this thing over time.
That's amazing. And yes, learning is a lifelong endeavor.
Mhm.
Um, you know, thank you again for sharing that. And in another interview of yours, because not that I'm stalking you, but I did follow to prepare for my session today. And you highlighted about growing complexity in the security infrastructure and significant skill gap we may face because obviously things are moving so fast. Now we have releases every day. We don't even have to look for a new product like 2 months, 3 months or something. We um, as Cisco, in specific, Cisco tackles this issue where strategies, what strategies you believe will be most effective in closing that gap while you build those infrastructure and the talent we need to build those infrastructure.
What strategies will be important in closing the gap of what? Of
Between building the infrastructure and the talent you need to build those infrastructure.
so I think like if you look at we had done a survey recently, like 97% of the CEOs said that the promise of AI is super exciting. All of them are bought into it. Only 1.7% of them actually felt like they're prepared. So you ask the second level question, why do you not feel prepared? And the biggest reason was infrastructure readiness of the company. The other big reason was safety and security and trust. If people don't trust AI, they're not going to use it. It's becoming an impediment to adoption. And the third big reason was the skills gap, you know. And I would look to your audience and say, my goodness, this is an opportunity. Um, if you're not in the weeds, you can take a step back and you can actually simplify things. And that's a huge opportunity. So infrastructure needs to get simplified. I think it's too complicated right now. Security and safety needs to get simplified. And then the skills gap, the people, like need to think about the skills that they currently have. Um, I think it's a very important thing for those skills to be, you know, think about them as very acquirable in a very compressed amount of time. Um, and it requires very little experience to get from point A to point B. And so experience is important. Of course, you develop instinct and all of that, but the tooling now is so good. Like I took this job of running all product at Cisco 9 months ago. Zero chance that I would have made as much progress if I didn't have AI by my side as a companion. Zero chance, right? And so the skills that you need are those of hunger and curiosity. If you have that value system, everything else is actually just our mechanics at the end of it. Like I have now gotten to the point in life where I don't worry about anything that I don't know because anything is learnable. It's just a matter of, do I want to spend the time learning it? And if that's necessary for me to learn, then I learn it. And it's the beauty about it is you the distance between where you are and getting to be an expert on any topic area, that is compressing. You can become an expert at a very rapid pace in any topic area because of the tools available to us.
So what I'm hearing is, after all, everything sums up to the intent of really learning and really
Intent,
learning.
curiosity, hunger, ability to make sure that you're really asking the right questions. Reflect on the questions you're asking and reflect on what you're listening to for off the questions that are being asked. Because sometimes the questions, as you're responding to them, you learn more about yourself as you're responding to questions. So that's why have a lot of fun during interviews when you start interviewing, when you're returning back into the workforce, because you'll start finding a very different level of a spring in your step once your interviews start going well. And don't take the first job that you've interviewed for. Interview a little bit so that you can see the landscape. You know,
Very insightful, very insightful. And talking of turning intention into impact, Cisco is the title sponsor for our Return to Work conference happening this August, which is an
that's great.
incredible
So glad.
example. Thank you for your leadership. What advice would you give to any other senior leaders who wants to move beyond intention and take action and become, a real ally driving tangible change?
Look, first thing I'd say is if you took some time off, um, no one else is going to tell you and ask you beyond just curiosity why you took the time off. But you should believe that you deserve to have taken the time off. So it's okay. I'm glad you took the time off. Just believe it, because sometimes you might say you believe it, but you might yourself second guess whether it was the right thing to do. It was absolutely the right thing to do. For whatever reason, you might have done it. Taking care of an elderly person, taking care of a child, taking some time off, learning, going to college, whatever the reason might have been. I'm glad you took the time off. Don't actually feel guilty about it. Because if you feel guilty, that comes across. Don't feel guilty. Be proud about the fact that you took the time off. It's the ultimate show of confidence. I took the time off because I needed to do something else then. I'm going to come back because now I'm ready. Man, that's the ultimate show of confidence, right? And so that's great.
And
Second,
coming from you, if you can do it, and you just kind of said that, so I think that's a huge takeaway for all the returners today on the call. And
oh,
as
it's great.
we wrap up, I would love to hear that what one mindset or habit or maybe a piece of advice you'd want every woman returning to the workforce to hold on to.
Um, I would say, um, you know, it is the hill is not as high to climb as you might think it is when you're returning back. And it's specifically true in the AI era, because you will learn and get up to speed faster than you thought. And the gap of knowledge is no longer the relevant gap. The gap of experience is no longer the relevant gap. Um, the gap of curiosity is what you have to bridge. And so just get super curious super fast and stay super hungry and stay super intense, and you'll be great.
Oh my God, we couldn't end this session with a better mindset advice than that. As we close today's inspiring conversation, I want to sincerely thank you, Jeetu, for your time, your insight, and your inclusive leadership. Truly setting an example of what allyship and impact looks like in action. And to everyone joining us, don't forget to register for the upcoming National Women Back to Work Conference, an incredible opportunity for you all to connect, learn, and continue driving change together. Thank
Can
you
I just
all.
tell your audience one thing is if you're returning back, welcome back. Looking forward to having you.
Thank you so much, Jitu. And thank you all for being part of our journey.
Take care.
Take care.